stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a bit. But I appreciate you all tuning in. We will get into some updates because I know there were questions about, what I've been up to, if I was even coming back, and how things have been in general. So we'll definitely get into that. I'm going to give it a couple minutes before we get into the main topic tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit about, and this kind of ties in with what Lisa and John were talking about on their show, water parameters and this trend, I guess, that's going on. So I'm just now getting back into YouTube, now having internet access once again, but the lack of water changes or don't do water changes. And I wanted to talk tonight about some of the basic mistakes that I've seen people make and how we can kind of avoid some of that in terms of what new fish keepers are striving for. So we'll get into some of that. I keep looking over here to got Lisa and John on the phone over here, seeing what's going on with them. We'll give it a second, and then when they switch over, we'll get into the main topic. But I do appreciate Alia coming back to the channel. I'm glad to be back. I have missed you all. I've been up to a lot of fun stuff, so we'll talk more about that shortly. Before I get there, I want to say thank you to Lilibet Tavares. At 5 o'clock this morning, she threw out a $3 super sticker with that cute little fox. It says, "How's it going?" Lilibet, thank you so much for that. And Carol Cox rejoining as a member. Been a member for over 2 years now. So thank you so much, Carol Cox. Welcome back to the Fish Room Fever family. And of course, I see everybody coming over from John and Lisa. A huge thanks to John and Lisa for the send over. I do very much appreciate that. Love you all, and I'm just glad to be back. For those of you joining, tonight we're going to talk about some of the common mistakes that new fish keepers make in terms of goals that they set for themselves and how we can potentially avoid that. I think I'm going to upset a couple people. So I should probably preface that with what I'm going to talk about tonight doesn't necessarily, or just doesn't, apply to your high-end aquascapers, people that are setting up show tanks, things of that nature. If you're doing those things, one, you're probably not watching this for tips, because it's not, really, it's not really what I go into. We don't really talk a whole lot about competitive aquascaping, though I do enjoy aquascaping. And Ed over here has won, his own aquascaping contest. So there's that. This is more oriented toward your newer fish keeper, or possibly even some of the maybe more mid to long-term fish keepers. Though typically by the time you get to that arena, you've kind of figured things out for yourself if you haven't already gone looking for help. The biggest issue that I see, I think, is what I would call trying for pristine as opposed to parameters. And what I mean by that is a lot of people, their goal when they first start fish keeping is, I have to keep the tank clean. It has to be crystal clear water. I try and get it see-through, no algae, no nothing. It just as pristine as you can get it, to the point that, Ed, I know you know some people that have done this, and I do as well. People will pull out their filters and bleach them and clean them, pull out their decor. Even going to the extreme of pulling out substrate. So you can definitely have a system to clean. Algae is not a bad thing. I know aesthetically it can be bad for some people. You don't want to see it. But when you get into looking at the cycle of a tank and the way the system works, that algae in there, it can do some wonderful things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be algae, but I know that's one of those things that a lot of new people, they struggle with. And we'll talk a little bit about how to maybe avoid some of that. But I know a lot of new people struggle with that. And oftentimes the first thing that they do is they go to an algae side. And that just, they work, but you can definitely run into some negative consequences. And you're not really fixing the problem. You're just simply getting rid of the issue for the moment. And if you don't get to the source of it, it's going to come back. I think if we focus more, when you're first getting into fish keeping, focus more on, understand what the nitrogen cycle is, but not even so much the cycle of the tank, as opposed to your overall balance of the ecosystem. So learning more about, okay, if I put in this many fish, if I put in a dozen tetras in this tank and I feed them once a day or once every 3 days or twice a day, and I have, these 5 anubias, how is that going to affect your nitrogen cycle? How is that going to affect your parameters? Going back to parameters versus being pristine. I think if we help people a little more with that, and we'll jump into the chat here in just a minute. I'm going to actually pause that right there. That way it doesn't run away from me. So I've been out of the game for a couple of months. I forgot to stop my chat when we first got in here. But I think if we focus more on that and understand that we can come back and fix the algae problem, we can come back and teach you how to make it prettier. Let's just learn how to balance things first. And then maybe it's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing, but the fish are happier. You've got plants that are growing, even if you're getting some algae on them, things of that nature. So I guess that's my initial rant. We'll talk a little more, but I want to give my buddy Ed a chance to talk because he has got to say anything.
Well, I've been enjoying everything you're saying. And the one thing that's been sticking out in my mind, which probably shouldn't, but I have never used an algicide like drip or chemicals.
Yeah.
What exactly does it do? Like, because you would think if it was something that would kill the algae, it might kill your plants.
So
But I don't know.
for
I just don't know
the
anything
most
about it.
part,
I've seen it.
in
I've just always
simplest
wondered.
terms, yeah, for the most part, in simplest terms, the way most algicides work is they basically strip off the top cellular structure or cellular level, the coating of your plants and algae and things like that. They basically
Oh.
kill off almost like thinking like a top layer of skin, and that's generally how they work in the simplest terms possible.
So that'd probably be horrible if you had mosses, maybe. Real delicate,
Yeah,
thin plants might
absolutely,
also
and
be
that's where
affected.
you're better to treat the cause of it. Okay, why am I getting algae? Versus just okay, I bombed the tank, algae came back, I've got to bomb it again because I didn't change what was causing the problem. I just did a quick fix on the issue. But also, like you mentioned, you can run into killing off other plants and things. So I would rather have healthy plants, intentionally placed plants, versus healthy plants and a little bit of moss versus constantly, or maybe it's every 2 months or once a month, where you're dosing algaecide and possibly damaging your plants as well. Some of and this is just my experience and the experience of some people that I know, fellow fish keepers and people in the hobby. Some of the best breeding tanks that I've seen and that I've had were dirty tanks. It's okay to get a little dirty sometimes. I know, Ed, you've had experience with that as well. You look at a tank and a lot of people would go, oh, that's not really visually appealing if you're somebody that's looking for like a pro aquascape or something. But you get a lot of different
Yeah,
microorganisms. Yeah, go ahead.
it's so much easier to not like aquascape tanks. Like this is an aquascape tank, but it's a nubius because it's the easiest plant to take care of in the world, and it's nano petite, so it's even easier to keep it controlled. Um, most of my tanks just kind of go crazy. I like to let the plants go all over the place. I like it dirty in there. I not brown water, and I want to be able to see the fish, but I'm not worried about the pristine look. I'm more, if you go, would you drink water out of a pond? I mean, ponds are dirty and gross, and but the fish thrive in it. They love it. So, you know, I just I think there's a good balance there for beauty versus, you know, uh, actually making your fish happy and have lots of babies.
Absolutely. I just thought of something. I may have to put it on a shirt. I'm a dirty fish keeper, and I encourage you to be one as well. But no, I know quite a few people. Lucas's tanks, and he, LR Brett's, he knows how to breed fish and he knows how to keep fish. And even he said, like, you look at his, I forget exactly what he coined the name of it, but he had one tank that was just hair algae. That's pretty much all. It was just hair algae. And he said that
Yeah.
was one of his best producing tanks
Algae
for
scape.
frying things. Yeah, Algaescape. Yes, absolutely. I know several other people who some of them won't publicly admit that they have some dirty tanks behind the scenes that do great breeding things. But really trying to mimic that natural aspect, I think, will help people a lot versus the over cleaning. And I think that's what a lot of people get geared toward when they first get into it is over cleaning. Now, that being said, I do believe that you should do water changes. I do water changes as frequently as parameters require, not as far as keeping tanks pristine. If you look at my tanks, especially right now, I've got a lot of algae. I didn't have my times up and running because I just did not want to run with the god awful HughesNet internet that we had been dealing with. It just didn't work. So, like the tanks behind me, a lot of algae in some of them. It's because I've been manually turning the lights off and on at different times, leaving them for different lengths, which is one thing I'll say. If you're new and you are having some troubles with algae, uh, get a timer, whether it's a Wi-Fi timer or it's just one of the old-fashioned mechanical timers where you can set it. Get a timer and set a specific photo period for your light and then start working from there. Because what you're looking at typically with algae is how much light are you putting into the tank, how long are you putting the light in for, and then what's the nutrient level? How much waste do you have in that tank or fertilizers? And once you get into messing with those things, it's pretty easy to get rid of algae, though it's not an overnight thing. It is a process, and you can do manual removal. And we've talked in full video about dealing with algae and things like that. So I won't go too deep into it. But if you're sitting here and you're new and you're like, I have problems with algae, if you're not on a timer, get your light on a timer. Set it to, I would say, a 6-hour photo period. If you're, kind of just, I don't know how long I've been turning it on, and then go from there. Leave that for a week or two, usually to see how it's going. Again, understand your fish load. Are you feeding 3 times a day? Because it's a breeding tank and you've got fry and stuff in there. Are you feeding every other day? How much fertilizer are you dosing? How many nutrients are going into that water? And then start working from there versus, well, I'm going to, and this is a mistake I see often happen, is people will stop dosing fertilizer to try and get rid of algae. And for anybody that does know, algae is a much simpler structure, and it can get nutrients from a lot more basic elements. I think elements is the wrong word there, but we're going to run with it. A lot more basic elements than a lot of your plants will. So even if you stop dosing, what you're actually doing is you're allowing the algae to thrive while you're starving your plants out that you're trying to get to outcompete the algae, which is the end result you're looking for. Water changes, again, going back to parameters, get a kit. I don't care if you get the test strips, which I have the test strips. I love those. For years and years and years, I used the master test kits. But when you've got 10, 15, 20, 100 tanks trying to do the test tubes, you're going to spend all weekend doing that. So I like the strips. They're easy. Just go in there and do that. Again, you kind of need to know what the cycle is, but you're more looking for learning how what you're doing affects the numbers you're seeing. So we'll move on from that for the moment. I want to jump into chat real quick before I get too far behind, because I'm sure I'm a good ways behind. If you're new here, a huge thank you for hanging out. We've got 150 people watching, or as John would say, 47,000 people here tonight. I appreciate y'all. I am going to jump over here. If you have a question or comment you would like for us to read live on the air, because that is one of the things we do, is if you have questions, Ed and I do our best to help you out. See if we can answer those. Sometimes we can save a fish here and there, and that's always great to be able to do that. Just put @FishroomFever, and that will highlight on my screen, and I'll be able to read that live on the air tonight.
Going back to when you were talking about timers are so nice because they allow you to be lazy because you don't have to turn on the lights and turn them off. And the best thing is you can set it for whatever time you want. So you could
Mhm.
set it so it comes on an hour before you come home from work. So your lights are on your beautiful tank. You get to watch your TV and do that stuff, and then have it come off or turn off at like after the 10:30 news is done, you know? So it just, I love timers. They're so nice that way.
Absolutely, and I would definitely recommend if you're getting into timers to get a Wi-Fi one, because even in times when I need to do fish-oriented things, maybe it's not my photo period and my lights aren't on, I can just push a button and turn on all of one rack or whatever system I need on to be able to get in that tank and check for fry or see if there's something I need to fix, and then push a button and turn it back on, and it's still on schedule without having to dig to the outlet and hit the manual override and things like that. See, highlighted questions and comments here. Oinkmaster Spring Forever says, Fisher Fever and Ed, hi, hello, and welcome back. Winky, it's great to see you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Paul Sotero, the awesome moderator that he is saying, just a reminder to knock James off topic, add at Fish Room Fever to your questions or comments. 100%. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate you and everything you do. I've forgotten because it's been a couple months. I've forgotten I need a new mouse because this one, when I scroll down, it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It goes down and then it bounces back up. So we'll have to get that for next week's stream. Oh, there's the jump. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Been a little while. I got to get back in practice here. Normally, we try not to have any dead air. Dead air. Drink water. Good to see you. Says, how would you treat a beard algae? I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. When I've had to deal with it in the past, I guess let me rephrase that. I hate it when I'm trying to get rid of it. I actually enjoy the aesthetic of beard algae in some tanks, just depending upon flow and things like that. You can get some really cool looks out of it. But in terms of removal, what I have always done is as much manual removal as possible. And then there are a couple of different routes I've tried that kind of work. But first off, we go back to, looking at your parameters and everything in phosphates and all of that. Sometimes it can be hard pressed depending upon what your water source is to get rid of things. But your lighting cycle, the nutrients in the tank, and some of your different other water parameters that affect it. In the process of doing that, and get in there and manually remove as much as you can. Little scrub brush, toothbrush. If you're just going at some rock, I've even used like the little wire brushes and things to really get in there and scrape that stuff out, like saying dragonstone or things. And then I will usually either do a hydrogen dip, hydrogen peroxide H2O2, or a bleach dip. Because I'm trying to think of the percentages here. I think I did a video on it, but I'll have to. The bleach I usually do. I'll start with the 1 to 20, and I'll soak stuff there. Especially if I have no other plants, you could actually even just go. You could bleach a rock and rinse it off, and you're going to have. You can use dechlorinator if you need to, just to make sure that there's no chlorine going in. But I do the H2O2 a lot when I am doing algae removal. So, but oftentimes I don't. But if I was going to do it, that's what I would do. I would look at what's causing it, and then I would get into that removal technique. And that kind of gives you a jump start. So instead of going, okay, well, let's see if my adjustments to lighting and nutrients worked and waiting 3 weeks to see if it starts dying off, that can get you a little bit ahead of the game to where you've removed as much as possible. And now you don't have to get rid of half a pound of algae. You have to get rid of an eighth of a pound of algae or something like that. Just random examples. Ed, anything you want to add on that, buddy?
Yeah, it's really weird. I haven't hardly had any blackbeard algae throughout my life. And I've been in the hobby forever. I had it on a piece of wood in my 120, and I was getting worried, like, how am I going to get rid of this? And one of my Cory cats would go swim right up to the top and eat it. And it was gone before I knew it. It was so weird. But I'm not saying get Cory cats to eat blackbeard algae, just sometimes you get lucky. I don't know about flagfish, American flagfish. If they eat it, they are
Mm-hmm.
crazy algae eaters.
Yeah.
I I had a tank because I like to have my tanks like season for a couple months and the plants and stuff. Well, this one probably went almost 6 months before I put a single fish in, and the algae was getting out of control. Well, uh, one of my flagfish got beat up by the dominant male in my flagfish tank, so I put him in there to heal up. In 3 days, there was no algae. I don't know how a fish this big could eat that much algae, but they are the kings of eating algae. The only thing is or hair algae and things like that. Uh the problem with them though is they're huge fin nippers. So they will destroy pretty fish. But
Absolutely.
yeah, and have you ever tried just applying hydrogen peroxide directly to the like put it in a thing and drip it directly onto the uh
Like doing a spot treatment.
yeah,
Yes. So I
inside the
have
tank.
done, depending upon where it's at, what I'm trying to remove it off of, and how bad it is. I've done the spot treatments with a pipette in the tank. You know,
Yeah,
maybe it's something I can't remove the rock or something like that. You can
that
do
was a fake
spot treatments
pipette.
in the tank. Yeah, with a pipette. So, you know, I don't have mine hanging here. My brunch stuff's over there. I also actually have, I found H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, in spray bottles at the dollar store one time. So I keep that spray bottle and I have, you
Neat.
know, tons of big bottles and I'll refill it. So I'll pull them out and then I'll give them a little mist. And then I usually give it like 10 seconds and then I'll rinse it because you can always do more, but you can't unkill the plants once you've burned the cellular structure of them. So I'll do that. And a lot of times I'll do that maybe once a week. If I'm going to do that, I'll pull them out, manually remove what I can. Let's say I've got some algae on Anubias. If I can pull some off without damaging the leaves, do that. Give it a little mist. Give it about 10 seconds. Rinse it in the sink. Put it back in the tank. Wait a week. See how the algae is looking. Oftentimes, typically, what that will do is you'll see that algae turn a red, or some algae will turn a white when they die off. And then if you've got little fish or shrimps, things like that, they'll actually pick at those dead algae. So yeah, that's definitely something you can do. Paul, our good friend Paul Sterra, was adding in there. You can spot treat with H2O2, or you can introduce livestock that eats it. Narrant, snails, garas, Siamese algae eaters, to name a few, will control BBA.
Gladdies.
Absolutely spot on. Aquatic Idiotics, good to see you. I saw you over there in John and Lisa's stream. There's Kitty Cat next to say hi. Hi, Dobby. Says, I'm going from a 75 gallon to a 240. Well, kudos on that. That is awesome. Before adding the fish, would you recommend transferring water from the 75 to the 240 or doing 100% water change? Thanks. So, what I have always done, and I'll preface this with understanding that I'm not really transferring over much, if any, beneficial bacteria in the water. Beneficial bacteria is a quote unquote free floating, but it's mostly on the surfaces. The reason that I will transfer water over is not to get seeded water or good water into the new tank. It's for acclimation purposes. So I look at it as so I've got my 240. When I move the piranhas over into that, I will probably take um, well, in that particular instance, I'll take enough water so that they have room to swim. So I'll put enough into that tank, which is the two. That's probably going to be, I don't know, 20, 30 gallons. I'll get enough water in there for them to swim, and they will have water that they're adjusted to in terms of temperature and nitrate levels and all of that. And then I will slowly top it off with fresh water. Again, it's not because I'm trying to transfer over any bacteria or anything from that seasoned water, because I don't really feel like there's quote unquote seasoned water, but I know that they're accustomed to the specific parameters, temperature, and things of that nature from the water they're in. So that's one of the reasons that I do it that way. Could you fill the tank up 100% with new water, acclimate them over, and throw them in? Yes, I just find that it tends to be less stressful. And especially if you don't maybe know, no biting, you don't maybe know what your parameters are. Maybe you haven't checked them. If if you're going from a higher nitrate number to a much lower nitrate number, that can actually be damaging for fish, even though you're going well low nitrates is good. Yes, but the shock of going from a high to a low, which is not something you can see, it's not something you can feel, can actually be jarring to the fish. So I keep some of the parameters and I slowly will fill up the tank. So that's what I would do. That's what I have done, and that's what I will do once I get the 240 set up.
Yeah, I would do the same thing, and it's basically, I think, to assist with the acclimation. So that way I'm making sure that I'm getting some of the pH, some of the things that are in the water that they're used to living in. Now, when you're doing that, you're also transferring ammonia and the bad stuff. So that's why you're not doing a 1 to 1. But
Yeah,
like if I'd probably like if I had piranhas, I'd put them probably in a 5 gallon bucket to walk with them or something. And I'd probably pour the whole 5 gallon bucket in there as long as they weren't sitting there too long. And I don't know if piranhas are big poop machines, but like a goldfish might poop a whole lot in a bucket because I get nervous and there's just
right.
poop everywhere. If that's the case, then I'm gonna try to keep the poop at the bottom of the bucket and not do the
Right,
whole thing.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's I guess another way I would phrase that is I would look at it like I'm doing an 80% water change maybe. Get the tank with 20% of the old water and then top it back up to where it's like you've just done an 80% water change. That's you should be fine unless you had some crazy high nitrates and then you dropped them, from like say 140 to 40 within a matter of 30 minutes an hour, however long you're filling up. Then you might see some distress in the fish. But other than that, it's what I do. And I appreciate the question. Coral Works says Excel is an
Great
algaecide
question.
versus hydrogen peroxide versus something else. Say you have hair algae or BBA on some hardscape you're attempting to clean, low risk to livestock. So if you cannot remove it, remove the hardscape, because sometimes it's big rock or maybe it's on a rock that's under some other pieces, things like that. What I would do is I would get in there and I would manually remove as much as possible. If you don't have anything that you're going to ruin or tear up, you can get little sets of wire brushes that are about the size of a toothbrush, usually at a dollar store. And I've often gone in with those after I've went in, pulled out what I can, taken the toothbrush, which is a softer bristle versus a wire brush, scrub what I can with that. If it's really stuck on there, which oftentimes, no, baby, we're not going to climb on the computer. Sorry, the cat's trying to get on the keyboard. Uh, then go in there with the wire brush, and then you can actually go in and when you spot treat with your hydrogen peroxide, you're going to get a lot closer to the root of it or the source of it versus if you've got 4 inches of hair algae waving in the wind, so to speak, and you're trying to spot treat at the base, you may not actually be able to get in to treat all of it. If you've already prepped that surface by doing the manual removal, you can get in there, and oftentimes it's a one and done when you can get to the base of it. And then you can look at, okay, I've adjusted my lights and things like that to help avoid it coming back. And there are different dosing. I guess I'll say this: there are different dosing instructions depending upon who you talk to in terms of how much you want to put in the tank. I would tell you probably go watch maybe 5 videos from 5 different people specifically on H2O2 spot treating and look at the dosages they're using. And I always will work from bottom end up. Again, it's easier to do a little more than it is to undo something. So I would say that in terms of your dosing on it. I don't typically do whole tank dosing. Usually it'll just be a spot treat.
Now,
All right. I know
you
we've
were
got a bunch of
saying that
awesome. Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
you don't have to have, pristine water for breeding. Is kind of what we were saying earlier,
Yeah.
because you might be using sponge filters and stuff, and they they don't like just collect all the debris in your tank. But I've found if you want to clean that stuff up, like if somebody's coming over or something, like the sharks, this is a KG
Yeah.
one. It is a I use it as a water polisher. And then I also have a
Yes.
big water polisher from Whisper that I'll do the big tanks. And I do my tanks when I bring them in for the summertime because they have so much algae and stuff in them. And I use the Whisper uh s- polisher then, and it's just amazing. If I have new substrate in a tank and it puts a big cloud, these underwater canisters and are just incredible for polishing. So I I just this one is the one that I just rotate between my little tanks, and then I've got a big one
Absolutely.
in my 75 that I run all the time.
Definitely. Absolutely. It's good stuff. I like to run water polishers as well. I usually do my little DIY method with a power head and a water bottle full of polyfill. But those
Heck yeah.
CJs are awesome. Matt West saying,
I need
"Hi
to
guys,
get
great
them
to
in.
catch Fish Room Fever live again. It is great to be live again. I appreciate you being here, Matt. And all you other awesome people, 142 people still hanging out with us. Thank you so much for that. I know we have some awesome people that have done super chats and things. I will be right to those. I'm gonna grab one or two more highlighted things real quick, and then we'll say some thank yous to our sponsors. Amisa says, and thank you for being here, Amisa. Is there a natural progression of algae in new tanks? I seem to notice green diatom, then hair / fluffy algae, and then it settles out. Yes, so that's a great question. I tend to notice the same thing. Now, a lot of times you will start off with almost an algae dust. It can be the green, or you can get the brown diatom is really common. You get some brown diatom algae when you're first starting up a tank. You get the green that just kind of, if you're doing bare bottom, which most beginner fish keepers or new fish keepers aren't, that's more of like a breeding thing, I think, for most people because they want the aesthetic. But I digress. But you'll start to notice then that you get algae that's covering your surfaces. So you'll see, okay, I'm getting algae on the glass, but it's not a strand of algae. Sometimes words elude me. It's just this dusting almost, and you can just go in there and wipe it off or scrape it off. And then typically you get into, let's see if you can see it from there. Here, I'll show you. I'll show
Pet
you a
filter.
dirty tank. We're gonna do some on the move stuff here. So this, let me check my camera. You notice the walls here on this tank. The above part is where I kind of get that dusting. So that's where I scraped that glass maybe 2 weeks ago, and it's got the lighter dusting. But if you go down some, you've got that hair algae, which is now developed out. And you can see some fry right there. And sorry, the front glass isn't clean because I didn't plan on showing the tanks off. So I didn't clean the front glass. But the bottom part is where I have not scraped the algae. I've not wiped the algae off. So I've let it go from what you see up here and develop into that. So you can, I almost recommend, if you've got a tank, let's see if I can get this fixed. The endlers are like, is it food time? Is it food time? All right. Hopefully we didn't give anybody motion sickness there. So I actually enjoy having the dusting, is what I'm going to keep calling it, of algae on there. And then every once in a while, I'll take down, like the side of that. I'll scrape it down, or that one I left part of it. One of the benefits, like in my instance, that's a tank for breeding those endlers. Coming soon, fishroomfever.com. Just kidding. Had to throw a shameless plug out there, right? Is that all of that algae that's coming off the side, that long hair algae that you're like, oh my God, that looks horrible. All of the fish, not just the fry, but all of the fish will actually throughout the day, they're just up inside of that, just picking away at it, constantly having a food source, constantly having things to nibble on and help them grow. So I enjoy it. But yeah, there is definitely a process, like what you noticed, Lamisa, and what you mentioned, and you nailed it spot on. That's kind of the typical progression, is that green dusting or brown diatom algae that comes, and then it kind of blooms up into the fluffier stuff like that if you let it go. And then usually that's when you start to see nature will find a way. Nature starts to balance itself out. And you'll get that algae will soak up a lot of nutrients, and then it'll be like, okay, I don't have enough nutrients, or okay, you've adjusted the light. A key thing that I don't think I specifically touched on was add more live plants. I know I mentioned the balance between live plants and algae. Live plants are wonderful in so many different ways, not just aesthetically, but also for the health of your fish, the enjoyment of your fish, but for helping keep that balance and out competing algae. If you have the correct amount of healthy plants in a tank, they will outcompete your algae pretty much every time when you get it balanced correctly. So definitely go with that. Anything you want to add before I jump over to these super chats, buddy?
No, but I do agree. Plants are amazing at helping balance your tank. If you're not going to have plants, don't keep your lights on 24/7. Well, not 24/7, but I mean, there's no point to having them even on a timer. Just turn them on when you're watching, because you're just going to be growing algae. And another thing is the blue light. A lot of new fish keepers think that blue light is supposed to be moonlight, and it looks real awesome at nighttime. But
Yeah.
all it does is grow algae. It's horrible. So I use my blue lights maybe like once or twice a year. It is like maybe if I'm watching movies or something, and it'll give a cool effect. But I mean, how do you feel about that blue light?
I don't use it unless I want algae. It's pretty
Yeah,
much what we
that's
went to. Yeah.
but I think they, like at box stores, they tell people, "Oh, yeah, it's nice for your fish for nighttime lighting, and it makes them more comfortable." And it is true. Like maybe it would be like if you had a angel fish, because if you want your angel fish to keep their eggs on whatever they laid, have a night light or have some type of mood or moonlight, but don't do the blue, because yeah, the algae just loves that blue light.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100% there, buddy. All right, let's jump on over to the sponsors of the channel, these awesome supporters with their memberships and super chats. Thank you all so much. So we've got Drinkwater becoming a new member, actually re-upping, rejoining. Thank you so much, Drinkwater. Appreciate that. Hey, look, we got these back. All right,
Oh,
appreciate
nice.
you. Good to see you, Drinkwater.
I
Hope
haven't
you're
seen
doing
those in a
well.
while.
Yeah, Jay Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics. Been a member for
Jay.
27 months. Appreciate you, John. I
John's
hope you're
awesome.
doing well. I need to
Did you
talk to you
see he
about
shaved?
some guppy things. I haven't really seen anything. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we jump back over for we get to the update portion. But I've been essentially without internet for the past couple of months. The HughesNet that we had was awful. The best times you would get 2 megabit download and 0.25 upload if you were lucky. So I haven't really been able to do much of anything, and there's not a whole lot of cell service out here in the country. But no, I did not see the teach shave. I'm gonna have to go check that out. John said, "Hey, fish family, good to see everyone. Good to see you too, John. So I need to get with you and talk about some fishy business things. I've got some things I'm getting started, and I know that you are a man that knows what I need to know." Whip's World with $10 super chat. Brother Whip, how are you, my friend? Says kicking off the reinfestation stream properly with a let's get it's going to cut it off here. There we go. Let's get this party started. Fun. Come on, everyone. Join me in filling James's wallet with fish fam love. I double dog dare you. Whip, brother, I appreciate you. That does mean a lot. Thank you so much for the support, friend. Well, happy dance there.
Whip's awesome.
Yeah, we got to get one for John, though. We'll give John that. We'll happy dance on that one. Leslie Perry, another awesome member, throwing a $20 super chat. And Leslie, thank you. I appreciate you. It's good to see you, and I've had fun talking to you in some of the other chats now that I've been able to come back over the past couple of days, including over in the members live stream yesterday. $20 super chat said, "Whip double dog dared me. I could never turn down a dare. So happy you're back." I'm so happy I'm back. I really have missed you all. It has been phenomenal being out on the new property, 26 acres. It's been so freeing and it's been so enjoyable. But the one thing I have missed is the fish fam, is you all. So I'm glad to be back. And thank you, Leslie, once again. I'll get you a 2 thumbs up. Sure. Awesome. Let's move on here real quick. Mark Sterlson, good to see you as well, Mark. I don't get it's been a while. I'm glad to be back. $10 super chat says, "Because Whip will hit me if I don't." You got to watch out for Whip. He's a nice guy, but he could be a little aggressive if he wants you to do something. You kind of just roll with the punches or get the punches, I guess the best way to put it. But seriously,
Avoid
Mark,
them by just
thank you very
paying
much for the
James.
support. Yeah, there you go. Just, pay up and Whip will leave you alone. Thank you.
And buy him
Mark,
a beer
very
if
much
you ever meet him.
appreciated.
Whip,
Yeah,
not
100%.
James.
Yeah, I don't.
Just
I don't
give
do the
a
beer
hug to
thing,
James.
but that's for just give me a big old hug. DJ Autocross, another awesome person that I know and love. Good to see you. The $10 super chat to say glad to have you back. TJ, thank you so much. I'm glad to be back. I couldn't be more happy. I was kind of sitting here before we started with a big old grin on my face because I finally got to come back and do some live streams and talk to you all again. Thank you so much. TJ, I appreciate you. There. We've got Santos 863 with a $10 super chat, or it's the super sticker actually. I don't think I've personally gotten that one before. It's the jumping guy going, yippee! That's cool. Very, very cool. I do very much appreciate the support. Very kind of you. Again, never expected, but always appreciated. I love you guys so much for it. We'll do that one. We'll raise the roof action for you there. Whips World coming at it again with the $5 super chat. Says nudging the dare since it lost momentum. Come on, people. Got to scroll over again. I'm still on one screen. I haven't gotten the second screen set up out here, but we'll get back to that. It was a double dog dare. You can't ignore it or deny it. And then a laughing, crying face. But my brother, I love you. I appreciate everything you do. And it is good to be back. Good to see you, my friend. Gets a wink too. Whip likes the wink. He does. 3G with a $10 super sticker with that cute little exercise pair saying thank you. Thank you, 3G. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. And it honestly does help. I will tell you this, the funding, the support that comes from you all is what makes it possible to do the things on the channel, like, paying $50 a month for the streaming software and all that kind of stuff. So that definitely is very much appreciated. And it goes to good things. It goes right back into being on here. BJ Palmer rejoining. See, my mouse is scrolling up when I scroll down. There we go. Coming back to Team Snowball. Welcome back to the Fish Room Fever family, rejoining as a member. Thank you so much, BJ. What? Shocked. No, I appreciate you coming back. Thank you so much. I'm going to grab my chat and we're going to jump back into some questions here because I don't want to leave anybody hanging. And we've got a little under 20 minutes before we go hang out with Chattanooga Ed on the Crafted Show. All right. Scuba Stevo's Aquatics. Stevo, good to see you, my friend. Says, need any beard dye? Are you calling me out on the grays? I was kind of liking the grays, but I don't know. I might need to dye it out. I think we'll leave it for now. Who knows? I might do the blue again for Aquashello. You'll have to see me to see. Kids 3D and Aquatics says, hey, a stranger, got some new things about to go out soon. Want to test some stuff. Also, I need a microworm culture. Look a brother up, question mark. Yes, I can definitely send you some microworms. And I would love to test some more stuff. I will tell you this, shameless plug here. In full transparency, Ken has sent me some stuff for free to try out. He does 3D printing for aquarium and some non-aquarium related stuff. So full disclosure there. My son has 100% completely stolen the phone stand that you sent me, Ken. Not that I'm asking you to send me a new one, but I just wanted to share that with you because he got hold of it one time. I let him borrow it and I can't get it back. So I just thought that was funny. It's going to good use. I am using your, I forget the actual term for them, but the plates that go above the sponge filter that float, that help disperse the bubbles without all the excessive spray and surface agitation. Those things are still working great. And I do enjoy the sponge filter modifications for the uplift tube as well. So yeah, I will, and I've still got banana worms, microworms, and Walter worms in cultures over there. So if whichever ones you want, just let me know. I can send any or all of those out to you. All right, rolling and going here. Sky Dancer saying hello to us. Hello, Sky. Appreciate you being here. Glad to see you again. Mountain Greenery saying welcome back. It's good to see you. Mountain, it's good to see you too. Thank you for being here. Scuba Stevo wants to know any news about Aquaticon. I do not have anything on Aquaticon to share with you all. I don't have anything to share with you right now about it. So we'll see how that progresses. I wish I had something for you, but I unfortunately don't. And Stevo, as soon as I have something, you'll be the first, one of the first. I won't promise the absolute first, but I'll once I have some information I can share with you, I'll shoot you out a message on one of the various messaging platforms that we talk back and forth on. There we go. White Master Spring Forever says for Ed, or I guess either one of us. Speaking of algae, do you have a favorite medium-sized pleco? I'm still deciding on one for my 125-gallon cichlid tank. Ed, you know how much I love plecos, especially wearing them on my head.
Yes. Boy, what was the size tank?
125 cichlid tank.
Okay, so you can't do my favorite one, and I can't do my favorite one. Well, I might be able to do it in the 200, but I don't want to because I think it needs to be bigger than that. But my favorite is the watermelon pleco. I believe it's the L303. Is that the watermelon or is it the L330?
Oh, I don't
I know
remember
that
right
I
now.
got it's 2 3s and a 0 in there,
Yeah.
but it looks like a watermelon skin. It's one of the royal plecos, so it's like a big headed monster that's just awesome. That's my favorite pleco. If James and I ever build like a fiberglass tank here, maybe I'd get one that way. But other than that, I'll probably never get that. But right now, the plecos that I had on my thumbnail last week is the one that I'm looking for is the L183 Starlight ones.
Mhm.
They're really cool.
Oh, yeah.
They're an ancestry, so they shouldn't be too hard to breed. And then I could just give them to people. And I think that'd be so much fun to be able to give a $35 fish to people for free. Wouldn't that be fun? Now, I'm not
Absolutely.
going to ship them to
Yes.
people, but
Right.
come and meet me. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe next year at Aquashella, if I could bring a 20-gallon tank and I'd just, bag them and give them. That would be so much fun. I don't know. But I want to give them out at least at my fish club. And I belong to like 4 fish clubs. So I wouldn't probably give them away to the Atlanta people because they don't really do any giveaway stuff. Isn't that terrible? But you know,
Hey,
just fun. But yeah, that's the Starlight's one that I'm really looking at right now that I'd really like. All right, James. Whoops,
absolutely.
James.
So 125, I would probably go with, and this may be cheating because I have them already, but either Blue Phantom or Green Phantom. They're going to stay in that medium-ish range. That they would be fine in that. And
About
I do really
6
enjoy them.
inches average.
And you get, sometimes you get 7. But yeah, they'll stay at a good size. They're not going to get huge like your hypostomus, plecostomus, or your common pleco. So they're a real pretty one that I personally enjoy. A lot of it, again, personal preference. You could get into, oh, hey, gold nugget plecos is a beautiful fish. Kind of going back to the typical fish suggestion, find something that you really enjoy that fits in there. But those are a couple that I've kept that I really like myself, that have some good color, good flair, and they tend to come out more than some of your other plecos. Although, generally speaking, most plecos want somewhere to hide. The trick is escaping your tank or building your tank to where you have somewhere they can hide but are visible to you. So if you've maybe got some driftwood that's up towards the front corner of a tank or rock or something, they can get behind it in terms of the rest of the tank, but where they're behind the rock is actually facing out towards you. Drink water, saying thanks all of yous. Thank you, Drink Water. Always good to see you. Appreciate you being here. Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes said Fish Room Fever needs a fish that eats duckweed, or need a fish that eats duckweed. Goldfish seems to be the most common one that will tear through some duckweed. I haven't
I
really gotten. Go ahead. Go ahead, bud.
he said no goldfish with his discus.
That-
I saw him say that
okay,
earlier
gotcha.
or later.
All right. I didn't see that yet. I've yet to find anything that will reliably go for duckweed like goldfish do.
Tinfoil barbs.
I just haven't.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure tinfoil barbs do. But they
Yeah,
get
I don't
kind
know
of
how
big.
they would do with the discus. Because they could do it, but you want to make sure that they're not going to have aggression and the size doesn't become an issue with them beating up your pretty discus.
I
I
I
don't
had them with
I don't
angels,
remember
and
temperature requirements. Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
I had them with angelfish, and they really are a peaceful fish. They stay in a group and just move. At least the ones I had. You know, they get
Mhm.
big. That's your problem. But mine always stayed together. They were never aggressive to any other fish. I think they'd make a great dither fish. Um, you know, it was just when they would come, the angels would sometimes get out of the way so they wouldn't get ran over. Because one of them was blind that I had, and it was pretty neat because the blind one always stayed between two of the others, and I don't know how they knew that that one was handicapped, but they always kept him in between the other fish, and it was just really neat.
Right. Yeah, and you can even get into like some African cichlids and things that'll go for duckweed. But knowing now, which I hadn't even seen that comment, but knowing that it needs to pair with discus, I don't have a good one to recommend. Matt West says I also are also in need of duckweed removal ideas in tanks that are 38 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, on the fish, that can be hit or miss. What I do for duckweed, if I want to get rid of it, which some tanks I'm fine, some tanks I don't want it, is a real simple little do-it-yourself gadget with a power head. It's almost like my water polisher. I'll take just an empty water bottle, and then what I'll do is I'll cut slots in it, so it almost looks like a rook. If you're familiar with chess pieces, on the top, it's got kind of like the castle effect, and then I'll stick that on a power head upside down where it's surface skimming. And so you've got your power head upside down, and your bottle is partially sticking out of the water. You've got these grooves cut in it, these slots cut in all the way around. So it surface skims and sucks all of that duckweed in. And in the bottom of that water bottle, I'll have some polyfill or some, finer sponge, something like that. Usually I go with polyfill though, but if you don't have it, you don't necessarily have to if you've got really fine sponge. But I'll throw some polyfill in there. And what that'll do is it'll surface skim, it'll suck that duckweed down in there. It'll get sucked down and caught on that polyfill, and you're pushing the clean water out. You're also getting the benefit of polishing your tank while you do it. And if you've
I
got a smaller tank and you don't have a smaller power head, you can even, if you've got the tubing lying around, I have taken and run some tubing on the end of it to where I could divert the flow because it was just too much force coming out of a bigger power head in a smaller tank to be hitting, whatever section it's hitting. You can kind of run the tube to where, kind of shoots out at an angle, causes surface agitation versus blowing around your plants or your sand or whatever you've got for a substrate.
I did that kind of the same thing that you were saying, but I took pantyhose and put it in my 2-liter bottle so it would fill in the pantyhose. And once it clogged it up, then I'd pull the pantyhose out, dump it out, and then do it again.
Yeah,
And that worked pretty
absolutely.
good. But if you do it in a tank with a lot of guppy fry or any type of fry, you're killing your fry. So that's my problem is I can only do it to my big fish tanks.
Yeah,
At least
and
my
that
style. I
can
don't know about
right
his.
that could pose an issue. Well, with mine, it's just a matter of cutting different slot sizes, and oftentimes, especially so, like in that instance, if I want to do it for a guppy tank, I'm going to make sure I've got a longer bottle and kind of a lower flow, so that I've not got quite so much suction at the top it gives those fry a chance to swim away. When they start to feel that pull, typically they're like, water's pulling me, I'm going to swim away from it most times. I kind of like when you're gravel vacking and they can even swim up in the gravel vac siphon and they swim back out, that type of suction.
Yeah. All I've got is probably high power pumps. I need to get some smaller sumps. I really do.
Aquatic Idiotics, excuse me. Aquatic Idiotic says, also, I know you'll probably say, no, no, no. Though I've been more successful adding fish on the same day as setting up a tank, but less successful letting the cycle for 6 weeks. How is that possible? So I don't know exactly how you're cycling. I know one thing that a lot of newer fish keepers run into is they will set up a tank and let it cycle for a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, but they're not actually legitimately really cycling the tank. What I mean by that is they're not introducing beneficial bacteria through either adding a pre-used sponge filter or a piece of filter media that is already seeded with beneficial bacteria. They're not ghost feeding the tank, which is going to introduce some decaying matter, which is then going to trigger your beneficial bacteria that transition your ammonia to nitrite, and then your other beneficial bacteria that transfer the nitrite to nitrate. So oftentimes, even though we have a tank set up, we're really just spinning water around in it. Yes, eventually you will end up with some beneficial bacteria in there, but beneficial bacteria colonies will only grow to the size of food source that's available to them. So I think where you're seeing, and this is just me guesstimating off of the information I have directly from that couple sentences, I think what you're seeing is you're putting these fish in same day. So you're adding the waste source from the fish, plus any potentially uneaten food. If you're feeding and then, maybe someone gets left behind, but even the food they're eating, turns into waste. That waste pops out. Boom, it turns into ammonia. Your beneficial bacteria pop out and they go, hey, all right, we're going to start doing that. And you're planning for that. I think most people, when they're doing that, if they're doing a same day setup, they're more focused on making sure that it's successful than somebody that's coming back and going, oh, well, it's been set up for 6 weeks. It's fine. And they put the fish in there and they go, the tank cycled. So I think that may possibly have something to do with it. And again, I don't know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. But what I like to do, and yeah, you can. I'm not going to say no. But there's so many different ways to do things, and I think that's one of the fallacies of fish keeping, is that you have to do it this way. And I'm pretty sure John has said this, and now a lot of intelligent fish keepers, not including John and those. Kidding, buddy. A lot of intelligent fish keepers have said, if you hear somebody say you have to do it this way, just walk away, find somebody else to talk to, because there are not many things that you have to do a specific way. I digressed there and I ran off topic. But you can do same day setup and it be successful. Can that be harder on more delicate fish? Yes. So I think that there are so many factors that can vary into it. Hardier fish, that's why a lot of times goldfish were used for cycling tanks, is because goldfish are fairly hardy and they can handle a lot of that stuff. So people throw them in, they survive through the cycle, and they take them back to the pet shop, or they flush, where they do whatever the heck they decide to do with them. But you definitely can be successful with starting up a tank and throwing fish in the same day. I don't recommend it because most new people don't know what to look for and what they're getting into. And also, they may not know what their fish can tolerate in terms of ammonia spikes and, through the whole process, all the different levels spiking up. Because you've got to have that ammonia level get up there in order for that beneficial bacteria colony to spawn in there, if you will. Wrong terminology, but we're going to run with it. And then that turns, your ammonia into nitrite. And then you get the beneficial bacteria that turns nitrite into nitrate. And you have to keep that process going. If you don't have a continuous flow of waste in some way, shape, form, or fashion for the beneficial bacteria, beneficial bacteria A, to feed on, it's not going to produce the waste for beneficial bacteria B to feed on. So you might be spiking it up and, okay, I threw some fish food in day one, and then I came back a week later and I threw some more in. So you're getting little spikes of beneficial bacteria, but really when you get 6 weeks into it or 2 weeks into it, you haven't actually cycled it because it hasn't had that continuous feeding of the beneficial bacteria. And I think I probably went too long on that answer, but I hope that explained it well enough. Anything you want to add on that before I jump over? Because I'm almost into Chattanooga Ed's time here.
Oh, you did great. It sure is nice having you
Thanks,
back,
buddy.
James. A lot of
It is
people
good to
were
be
very
back.
worried, and I don't think they believed me. I kept saying he's coming back, folks. Just give it time. And I'm
Yeah,
glad
well,
you're
I
back.
mean, I had to stop early. I'll just say real quick, because the wait list for the residential is ridiculous. But still, it was to get all the hardware and the additional cordage and the modem adapter and all that stuff for the Ethernet cord. It was $800 I had to drop for internet. So that wasn't something I just had $800 to spend, especially after we just had to finance out $35,000 for a well because we were going to not have any water on the property, because the old well system was getting shut off. But I'm back, and I'm glad to be back. Delilah's Critters, it's good to see you, Delilah. Says, not sure if you heard my big news since you've been gone, but I'm officially managing that LFS I was telling you all about a while back. I hadn't heard that. Congratulations. That is awesome, Delilah, and I know you were doing a fantastic job managing that. Very cool.
I
Kudos to you.
think it's the same one that I think Lisa said that's John's favorite fish store in the world.
Oh, nice.
I
Very
think.
nice.
Is that the one with lots of cichlids? And if it's not, I'm sure it'll become his favorite
Absolutely.
since you're there because you're
All
so
right.
cool.
I hope I didn't miss anything. I know chat jumped a couple of times. I am going to jump over real quick and say some final thank yous to some contributors here that threw some super chats and things at us that I had not gotten to yet. Carlos Diaz. Carlos, good to see you. I've been talking to you and some of the other chats the past couple of days while I've been testing out the interwebs, the new service with a $20 super chat. Just glad to see you back. $20. $20.
And
I
it looks
appreciate
like
you. I
his
really do,
logo is a
Carlos.
sunfish. I don't
Yeah,
know if
it
that's
is.
a
That is
shark or
really
a
cool.
sunfish. Oh, it's already gone for me. I can't see it.
Oh,
But I
that
was
is
trying
awesome.
to
I love it.
eyeball it.
And also thank you for
There
being
it
a
is.
member. I said this in the members stream, but a huge thank you to all the members that stuck with me. I knew when we were going to have to take the hiatus that we were going to lose some members, and we lost about half of the members. And that's understandable because I couldn't put any content out. But about half of you all stuck in there, and I appreciate you more than you know. A huge thank you for that. Fantastic Freaks. Buddy, it is good to see you, Austin. I know I jumped into some of your chats here and there when I could while I was gone. Been a member for 30 months on Team Snowball. Let's raise the roof on that one. 30 months. It's time flies. Says, howdy, James and Ed. I've missed these streams on the way home. There we go. As I listen with a thumbs up. Austin, Fantastic Freaks. Very much appreciate you. You stay fantastic. I look forward to talking more with you soon. All right. We are about to head over to the Chattanooga Ed channel. Ed, what do we got going on tonight over there?
Well, the last couple weeks, you guys have seen me make these hides, and people they're still saying that's going to kill the sponge filter use, but it's not connecting directly into it. So it doesn't sit in it. It's going to sit a little bit back. So that way you'll have all your catfish hiding from you forever. But
yes,
I'm going to be making a different design tonight. So if it's not going to be a tree, we're going to try something different than a tree for people that maybe don't want trees and stumps in their fish tank. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight.
Well, that will be awesome. Again, a huge thanks to KG Tropicals, John and Lisa for the send over. Thank you all for hanging out. Still got 127,000 people watching. You're great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back. Ed, thank you for being here. I love all of you guys.
You bet.
We will see you next week on the Tank Show, where we try and spend some time acquiring new knowledge. But until next time, keep your fish healthy. Keep yourselves healthy. I'm just kidding. You thought I forgot. A huge thank you to the moderators, members, lurkers, listeners, super chatters, contributors, questioners, commentators, and of course the replay crew. I love you guys. Headed over to Chattanooga Ed. It's not going to do an automatic send over, so we'll have a link because Ed was not set up when I set this one up the other day. But we'll get a link in there. Follow that link over. It's going to be a blast. Aquarium Co-op. Love you. See you. Said it's been too long. Thanks for being here. Until next time, keep your fish healthy. Keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself a little fish room fever. And hey, why not try being a dirty fish keeper? Love you guys.